Hello, welcome to Whiskey Congress. My name is Jim. I'm here with my buddy Steve. You may remember us from Steve and Jim Fix the World While Drinking. We're moving on. We are now whiskeycongress.com. Steve, I'm excited about this.
Yes, I am too. This is something that's been a long time in the making. We have been working on developing a new brand and a new direction, and really it's about bringing our audience more all across the board, bringing them more content, bringing them better content across multiple platforms. We have the website, whiskeycongress.com. We have a YouTube channel that is Whiskey Congress, Twitter, Facebook, even Pinterest, Instagram, all of it at Whiskey Congress. So if you're looking for us, you can find us. Be sure to subscribe to our podcast on iTunes. You can find us on Google Play, Stitcher, multiple platforms. We wanted to expand our reach because that's what you do, right? You want to continue to grow.
It was tough to get out there, and we're Steve and Jim Fix the World While Drinking.
Right. Essentially, our name was too long, so we had to figure out a way to shorten it. And then when we started doing that, we said, you know what? Let's shorten the name, but expand our reach and what we're bringing to people. And so, really the only thing that's changing is the amount and the volume and the quantity. We just want to bring you more. We want to bring you more of those tough conversations regarding race and politics. We want to bring you more conversations about whiskey, especially good whiskey like Cleveland whiskey, which is a local whiskey and a distillery that we were able to tour this weekend. And we have an interview with the CEO, Tom Lix, which will be at the end of the show. Tom was great. The distillery was great. The whiskey that we tasted was great.
The technology we got to see was amazing for me.
Right.
I was geeking out big time.
You were, and you know what? I actually let it ride because it was really fascinating to listen to you and Tom talk about the process from a scientific standpoint. Science really isn't my game, but you guys I learned a lot, and I know a fair amount about whiskey, and I learned a lot sitting there listening to Tom Lix talk about their process and how it differs from the traditional distilling process, especially regarding whiskey. And it just got me really excited to know something like that is in our hometown, that's here in Cleveland. It's something that, and if you get an opportunity to if you're here locally, you live here, it's worth it to make the trip and go do it. I mean, it's not a big place. They're able to do a lot in a small place, so definitely go check it out. Or if you come to visit and you're looking for something to do, that's something that you can bang out in an hour, and it'll be well worth your time.
And I won't be a spoiler because Tom will explain it better than I will, but I learned a lot too, and there's just some really great things I learned about whiskey and how their approach to producing a product that normally takes 7 years to reach maturity that he can do in 6 months. There's talk of a worldwide whiskey shortage coming because certain markets.
Well, I'll tell you that whiskey shortage is here.
Right.
We'll talk about that later. And I'll talk about it more on some of our shorter sessions on YouTube. But the whiskey shortage is here, and somebody's got to fill the void, and Cleveland whiskey is a part of that process.
They're a big part of that. So stick around for that interview at the end. It was a lot of fun. Again, I enjoy doing Steve and Jim Fix the World While Drinking with you, but even fighting through saying it now, I'm glad we're making the
right. Maybe something shorter, something smoother, something easier. And so, again, we're not really changing what we do. We're just changing how we do it.
Right.
We're those difficult conversations. You and I have had plenty of intense, dark, deep conversations about the world we live in, from a race standpoint, from a politics standpoint. And it's important that I think we continue to do that. It's just that we need to do it better. And so, there's some changes that we're going to make, that we've committed to making to the show to ensure that it's better. Obviously one of those, it's a show about whiskey sometimes. We talk about whiskey, we drink whiskey. And
sometimes we drink.
We figured out that we probably need to throttle down the whiskey. I'm sure over the course of time, there may be an episode or two where I'm sure some of you will write in or comment that, hey, it seems like you guys had a little too much that episode. But we'll try to keep those to a minimum.
Yes, agreed.
So that being said, let's jump into a couple topics. Just some stuff that's going on this week that I think we absolutely need to cover. You know me, and
I
if as a listener, if you've been listening to us, I am a relatively black and white guy when it comes to like wins and losses. Like I'm not a moral victory person. If you've paid attention to what's going on, there are a number of special elections that have happened as different people have taken spots in Trump's administration. Some seats in Congress or Senate or in Congress have opened up, and so they've had these special elections, right, to get to fulfill those spots,
fulfill vacated seats.
And the Democrats' thought on this is, or was, I guess now, because I believe all the special elections are over. Their thought was this is a way because the Democrats took a pretty good beating during the election season. During the elections, just Democrats just got beat up. I mean, it started at the top, but I mean, it was all the way through. Republicans in the GOP control the House, they control the Senate, they control the presidency, they have control over the Supreme Court. This is not a good situation.
Not for Democrat, right?
Democrats are looking at it and saying, okay, well, we have these special elections, so we can begin to claw back, some control. If we can win a majority of these special elections, we can start to make headway for 2018. And their strategy, and I'm using air quotes here for those listening on the podcast, their strategy was to use the misgivings and the mistakes of the Trump administration to, point out, like, listen, this is what we elected. As a country, we made a mistake, so elect Democrats in these special elections, and that'll be the momentum we need in the 2018 to set things back right if you're a progressive on the left or a Democrat or what have you. And that was that. I think that was their strategy.
That was a strategy. I think I know for a fact that one of your huge pet peeves was the first couple special elections got closer than people expected. They were in districts that Trump won by 20% plus, and the Democrat only lost by single digits. And some Democrats were declaring that as a victory in a referendum, and your point was, no,
that's not a way. I mean, at the end of the day, that phrase, end of the day, don't let me say that.
All right. I'm going to stop you.
I don't know how you're going to stop the words coming out of my mouth, but finish something out. You can use my bottle cap.
The bottle cap for...
But for Democrats, and this idea that, we got closer than we expected, that's a win, that's momentum. No, that's a loss. That person is now in office for, the next 4 years. The next 2 years. That's not a win, right? You actually don't get another shot at this.
We came closer than we thought we would.
Right, you don't get another shot at this for another 2 years. You didn't do anything. You didn't accomplish anything. Special elections, are no way to gauge where we are as a country because you get low turnout. The people who do vote it's relatively predictable how they're going to vote because if they're that involved, then there's a pattern, there's a history there. It just, for me, if the Democrats were going to actually turn the tables and they were actually going to get more control, then they had to win these elections. And not a majority of them, they had to win all 5, right?
Is it 5 or 4?
No, there were 5.
Okay.
They needed to win all 5 because the numbers are so skewed in favor...
for it to matter in those 2 years.
Right. The numbers are so skewed in favor of Republicans in Congress right now that those 5 would have made an impossible task, right? It would have opened a peephole of light at the end of the tunnel. And right now, it's just black.
Another thing it would have done is it would have sent a chill up the spine of every incumbent Republican. So all the Republicans who are sort of staying in lockstep with the president, even if they're expressing some disappointment, they're not challenging the stance of the White House right now.
No.
And if Republican seats started falling to Democrats in these special elections, you would see the one and only consistent thing in a U.S. representative is their desire to protect their own seat.
Right. And so, it's to get reelected.
Yeah, right.
And so
that's what I meant by
if Republicans see seats falling to Democrats in these special elections, then their willingness to all of a sudden break away from Trump and start to say, I have to focus on what's most important in my district. And maybe that means working with Democrats. Maybe that means backing out of this healthcare bill. Maybe that means, not supporting some of the different issues with immigration. You would have seen. I can guarantee you probably would have started seen that.
You would have. But not
had a majority of, and we're talking about 3 out of 5 seats, but that's enough to shake the foundation. But instead, you had the opposite effect. You didn't win any. You went 0 for 5.
And the most recent one, they spent a ton of money.
Right, they spent $30 million in Georgia for Ossoff, and Karen Handel beats him by about the margin she should have beat him by. And, Democrats are like, I can't believe we lost. I don't understand. And again, it was the message that they tried to send. And the whole thing is Trump's failing, he's not doing what we want. And while you can say, well, he hasn't had a specific piece of legislation passed that really impacts anyone, and you've got these special investigations going on, you still don't have any solid evidence or proof, or you don't have anything substantial either way, right? I don't think that the GOP and Trump and his administration, they don't have anything substantial to hang their hat on and say, we're killing it. But at the same time, the Democrats don't have anything to hang their hat on and say, they're shit in the bed.
You're right. It's funny because Republicans are claiming victory on certain things, like the economy, which really isn't impacted that quickly by an administration.
Right. I think some of the things that we saw early on were a direct result of Trump being elected. Confidence for
consumer confidence,
things like that could have shifted. But your point still
job growth doesn't happen.
No.
In
Trump's elected. Let's add jobs.
Let's add jobs.
Not exactly how it works.
And the Trump administration has made self-congratulation and hyperbole an all-time new thing. And I'm not, before anyone says anything about my Trump bashing, if you can't see that, you're just not looking at the same world I am. He uses things like the best, the biggest, the greatest, you're going to get sick of winning, blah, blah, blah. That's been his thing. So you're never going to hear from the administration anything other than a declaration of victory.
We're doing great, no matter what happens, right?
And one thing that frustrates me is their ability to get away with talking out of both sides of their mouths, and particularly, everything related to his tweets and his which is crazy that we're talking about the president tweeting, but there were all these tweets about how the Russia thing was a witch hunt, the Russia thing was unsubstantiated, and then something leaks this week where an Obama official basically says that they knew about the Russian attempts to influence the elections and that it was steering it towards Trump, and they chose not to politicize it during the election. And now there's a Trump tweet saying, if Obama knew about the Russia thing, why did he do anything, calling Obama a failure because that scores points. But now he's tweeting that he's admitting there was a Russia thing.
Well, it's unbelievable, right? Trump's big thing was Russia, fake news, no collusion, what are they doing, witch hunt, all that stuff. Kellyanne Conway comes out today and says, it's Obama's fault that there was any hint of Russian collusion, it's Obama's fault that the Russians hacked the election, and it's Obama's fault that he didn't stop it.
Right.
And listen, I've been critical of Obama in the past. Just certain areas, especially when it came to foreign policy, I felt that he could have been much firmer and had some better positions.
I agree.
Now, the Trump administration and the GOP have now decided across the board that no matter what, all sentences must begin with Obama was terrible. It's Obama's fault. Had Obama done something better, you can't listen to a conservative talk on an interview, on the radio, on TV, in person, without them first blaming Obama for something.
Or Hillary.
Yeah, fair, but mostly a lot of it is geared towards Obama, and I think I have my opinions on why. But a lot of there's you can't hear somebody from the GOP talk without them first blaming Obama for the fact that their wife got their period on a Thursday. Like, it's unfucking believable.
And it's an applause line, right?
Right. I mean, it is. It's just it's a talking point that they've all taken, and so for Kellyanne Conway to come out, like, it falls right in line, right? She comes out and she's like, well, so what happened is that they finally had to acknowledge, like, okay, listen, we can't avoid the fact that Russia absolutely tried to hack our election. We know this, right? Like, the intelligence committees have said, listen, we're not, I mean, I'm not going to show, they're coming out and saying, we're not going to show you the exact data that we have, but it's there, right? I mean, they literally tried to get into election headquarters and software and affect the vote. We know that they, on social media, had people whose sole job was to put out propaganda, you know, as close to hate speech as possible, start Facebook groups and rope people in. Like, that's what they did. Their strategy was to destabilize our election.
And a lot of people will say this, and this is absolutely true, that, well, all they did was expose Democratic emails that were real, and that showed an ugly side of the Democratic process, the Democratic Party's process. And that's 100% true.
It did.
But you know what? I guarantee you, if you leaked Trump team emails, you'd have seen ugliness there too. The fact is, if you only show the warts of one side, then you only embarrass the one side.
You only embarrass one side.
And if you go through 100 people's emails and cherry pick the top 100 emails out of 100 people over 6 months, oh, you get some doozies out of me, I can tell you.
Well, what I will say though is, I don't even know. Like, everyone's saying that Russia hacked the election to get Trump elected. I'm not 100% sure that's accurate. I think
that's what the intelligence committees say.
well, that's what they're saying, and I don't necessarily disagree with it, but the intelligence committees have a little bit of a beef with Trump. You know, I mean, Trump came in right away and attacked the intelligence committees for, you know, leakers, why aren't you doing this? And he, you know, he grandstanded a little bit against the intelligence committees and agencies, and those guys don't like that. So I can easily see how they're just saying, all right, well, we're going to push the narrative to say that, you know, the hacking happened, and it happened to, you know, get this guy into office and let him deal with it. But I think realistically, the Russians' whole point, they didn't really care who got into office. I don't think they were worried.
I disagree.
I don't think they cared. I really don't. I think their whole point was to, even if Hillary gets in, and they didn't feel that Hillary was going to work with them or whatever, I think their whole point was to cast down. I don't think that they necessarily believed they could get Trump elected, but I think if they had to choose between the two, that's when they wanted, for a couple reasons. And I think the biggest one is Trump is very predictable. He's easy, or sorry, maybe predictable would be the wrong word. He's easy to manipulate. If you work his ego, he plays right along. Hillary is probably as predictable too, and maybe Hillary, I mean, don't forget the Russian reset.
Hillary will blow at the wind.
Hillary's played pretty nice with the Russians at her time as an elected official. So this idea that it made, you know, just as much sense, or it made more sense I mean, if you want to say because he's not stable and you can somewhat control him by stroking his ego, I won't disagree with you.
And then there's also the question of how much Russian-related influence is there over Trump based on financial?
That's probably more. That's probably more of where you want to focus than anything else.
When you've got someone with a giant ego and you've got the ability to blackmail them, you hold a huge card.
Well, and I don't even know if it's necessarily blackmail, but I mean, you know, a lot of if you listen to no. If you listen to what Trump says, he says he doesn't have any investments in Russia, right? And but the issue is, you're right. He doesn't have investments in Russia, but there's a lot of Russian money invested in his hotels, in his properties, all across the world, right? I mean, and Russians, what they did was when our financial structure went to shit in 2008, and we, you know, homes being foreclosed on, commercial buildings being foreclosed on, the Russians saw an opportunity. A lot of people saw an opportunity. A lot of criminal entities saw an opportunity. They literally parked cash into vacant buildings, massive structures in New York City that were being built, multi-million-dollar condos that no longer could be afforded because, the person who was building it or who, was going to buy it, just all their money was gone due to, things that happened in 2008. So now these places are sitting empty. And whether it was the Russian government or the Russian mob or Vladimir Putin and some...
How do you tell the difference?
Sort of, you can't, it's all connected. There were Chinese government entities, there were Chinese, gangsters, there were, American, drug dealers, everybody. What they were doing is they were buying these places in cash, using shell corporations and parking it and saying, all right, well, I bought this building, I don't have to live in it, I don't have to do anything, but it's holding money. And a lot of those properties were Trump properties, right? Especially down in Florida. There are multiple stories, and of course it's the Washington Post, which the Washington Post, by the way, little side story, I need them to kind of calm down a little bit. I get they've got a thing against Trump, but now they're starting to look a little biased. So, you want to hold some sort of objectivity, you have to hold it. Someone needs to hold this administration accountable. But I feel like they need to kind of spread that around because it's easy for Trump and his administration to say fake news, look at them, they're lying, they're making it up, whatever, because they're the only ones coming out with it. How they fix that, I don't know. But anyway, back to this whole thing with follow the money, right? Essentially follow the money to Trump properties from Russians, and that's where you get your, can Trump be manipulated by the Russians? And maybe he's not. Right? Maybe he can say, I'm not beholden to any of that. I can completely separate it. But the look of impropriety, the look of the ability to be blackmailed, the look of being able to be manipulated because your Mar-a-Lago or whatever has millions of dollars from a Russian investor who happens to be the secretary administrator of defense nonsense in Russia. Calls in and says, we need this, and by the way, if you don't give it to us, then we're going to pull the $2 million that we put into your property.
$2 million.
That's what, right. I mean, that's only scratching the surface, but that's where all of this is coming from, right? This whole idea of what is Russian collusion and its impact on our administration.
It is. I have to bring up one stupid story. I know it's going to bug you, but sorry. The video.
I feel like you're not sorry because
you're right.
You're actually telling me.
So there was a video that came out this week of Trump driving his golf cart on the green. This is funny.
Okay.
Because if you're a golfer,
be funny.
If you're a golfer,
be funny.
You know that that's something you just do not fucking do. He didn't only do it, he did it in the most unsubtle, ridiculous, dickish fashion and then walked off. And he's getting filmed by these guys who are like, look at this guy, he's driving it right on the green. He then drives by, high fives the people filming him. Alright, yes I'm doing it to be funny, yes I'm doing it to be goofy.
Jim?
Yes sir?
Let me ask you this, where did this take place?
On his golf course.
Oh, the golf course that he owns?
Yes.
So...
If anyone else did that, they'd get thrown out of there.
Right.
And if you're going to say that...
It's his golf course.
Yeah, okay.
It's his golf... Listen,
Listen,
if you own a golf course, everything being the same, but you have the money to own your own golf course, right? And you being you, and me being me, and I got you drunk, alright?
Would I drive on the green?
What are the chances that I can get you in a golf cart driving around like an asshole?
You would never get me to drive on the green.
Bullshit.
Never.
Bullshit.
Never.
You don't even own a golf course, and I guarantee you I can get you drunk enough to go riding around in a golf cart on the green. I guarantee you I can get us kicked out of a golf course.
You could get us kicked out, but not for that.
Oh.
If I'm driving?
Exactly.
I'm driving? Okay.
Hold my whiskey, bitch.
Oh, it would not happen. But anyway, do you want to finish up on...
Yeah, I do want to, so, listen. For Kellyanne Conway to come out and blame the Obama administration for Russian collusion is par for the course. It's deflection. They're trying to divert attention away from the fact that they denied that there was anything going on with Russia at all, that Russia had any impact on anything. And so now they're doing a rudimentary diversion tactic that, unfortunately, people are going to fall for and believe, and immediately on Monday, tomorrow, you listen to Breitbart, you listen to Sean Hannity, and they're going to fall right in lockstep. Yep, it's Obama's fault that this even happened. And they're going to completely ignore the fact that they were pretending that there was no impact, there was no interference from Russia. They're going to go down the line that there was, ignore the fact that there was any Russian, there was the threat of collusion with the Trump administration, and they're going to go to, well, it's Obama's fault. And it's going to work. And their followers,
their audience will eat that up.
They'll eat it up. They'll eat it up. And I mean, there's plenty. If you've listened to our show for an extended period of time, I have been saying, you have been saying, that there is more than enough suspicion and reason for the inquiry. Right now, do we agree with the strategy that the Democrats in Congress have taken and the Senate? No, I don't. I feel like there's just, in terms of strategy, it's like no one has it anymore. Right? No one knows how to play chess. I don't even know if these people know how to play checkers. It feels like everyone is playing. Yes. But that being said, there's something there. Where there's smoke, there's fire. Right? And there's a hell of a lot of billowing smoke right now.
There is.
So
and we'll see where this goes.
We'll see where it goes. But I mean, you know where it's going to go? It's going to go nowhere. Like, this is going to blow over. In the next couple of days, something else is going to come out. And everyone's going to forget about this shit that Kellyanne Conway is saying. And they know it. That's why they do it. They being Sean Spicer, Kellyanne Conway, the whole Trump administration. They know that they can say and pretty much do whatever they want because they control the White House. They control the Senate.
Yep.
They control Congress. They control the Supreme Court. Fuck. They control 32 states out of the 50. They have control over everything. So who is actually going to stop them?
And yet, well, it's themselves, because they still find ways to trip over themselves.
They do.
And they keep finding ways to, they're still trying to win a campaign. And in fact, they're even regressing beyond that.
They're still having campaign rallies. They just had one in Iowa.
Where they talked about coal, where Trump went to a campaign rally style event in Iowa, and it talked about coal mining.
Right.
There's no coal in Iowa.
Right.
Coal. You don't mine for corn.
No. It's amazing. So, just throwing that out there, it popped up today. We figured it was worth talking about. Be aware of it, look at it, listen with the third ear, watch with the third eye. You have to be able to read between the lines, and it's not even subtle. What this administration is doing. It's just, it's
important for the Democratic Party not to take the bait, though. Don't start defending Obama, all right.
It's too late, though. Because, again, I have no faith in the Democratic leadership. I have no faith in the Democratic Party to handle anything the right way.
Let me throw one more thing at you.
They literally, they cannot stop kicking themselves in the fucking dick to save their lives, the Democratic Party. It is Tom Perez. I had a little faith in this guy. I was like, oh, well, maybe he will bring to the table what they need to change that. Nope, this guy is actually worse than Debbie Wasserman Schultz.
One of the issues that came up on Sunday morning TV today was, should Nancy Pelosi be removed as speaker? As minority leader.
Yes.
I stopped listening because
the answer is yes, but for the reasons that they're saying,
it's yes for a variety of reasons. But as soon as I heard these Democrats are calling for a change and Nancy Pelosi says I'm not going anywhere, I thought this is a story to tune into in 3 or 4 weeks. Because nothing's going to happen. And if the Democrats start infighting amongst themselves with all the shit going on,
Jim,
sorry. If they ratchet up,
continue and if they continue and it escalates, which it is and it's going to, they're going to cannibalize themselves. I firmly believe that the Democratic Party is moving further and further left, and in doing so, it's creating factions. They're going to cannibalize themselves. And by the time we get to 2018, if they continue on the path that they're going right now, the loss that we saw in 2016 it actually won't look that bad. 2016 will look okay compared to what will happen in 2018 if the Democrats don't get their shit together.
See, I don't see them going further left as a group. I see them scattering. So some people are running towards, maybe we need to be a bit more right, maybe we need to be a bit more anti-immigrant. I was watching Tom Manchin, the senator from West Virginia today on the morning shows, and I'm watching this guy tap dance between how to make coal miners happy and be a Democrat, and it's not pretty.
Again,
All right.
and this isn't you, but I mean, yes, there's some scattering, but the leadership of the party, you know, Keith Ellison, Tom Perez, they're pushing left.
Oh, definitely, and good.
And okay, but you continue to push left. You continue to get more and more progressive. You continue to alienate the people that did not vote for you, and alienate people who did vote for you but are starting to lose faith in you, and you're going away from them. That's not a good strategy. Okay, if you want to win, right? You want to win. You want to actually win an election, not be close in the election. Then you need to start to do things that will allow you to win. Okay, and doing things like, listen, you want to do these things that make you feel good, like a better person.
No.
Not you. I'm just saying as a party. I'm saying as a party. You know, we're doing it for the people. We're doing it for the kids. And we're doing it. Okay, great. We're getting your ass kicked in every single election. Every single election, you're losing.
To me, though, it's almost as much as not owning what you are and owning what you mean, what you believe in, and just trying to tap dance and not. I don't think the Democratic Party in 2016 thumped Obama's successes nearly enough. They knew that people had been hearing how terrible things were, and rather than say, "Really, let's rewind from 8 years and look at where things have gone," instead of doing that, they didn't stand strong on Obamacare. They didn't. Well, some of them did, but they
weren't unified.
They weren't
unified.
They
right?
didn't.
A house divided.
They didn't
House
say-
divided cannot stand, and I completely agree with you that they didn't do that. I question that. You question that. We've both been questioning that since 2015. We needed to hear more. You have to, you can't be the humble, quiet, stoic, you can't be Tony Dungy, right? Tony Dungy and every coach other than Mike Tomlin that's came from him, right? Every black head coach, right? The complaint about them all, Lovie Smith, right? They all have that. I'm quiet. I'm stoic. I'm not gonna rock the boat. I'm gonna let my work speak for itself. No, you got to be brash, right? You have to have the record of Bill Belichick, but you have to have the attitude of a Rex Ryan in this political battlefield that we're dealing with.
But definitely not the reverse of that.
Yes, you have to have the record of Bill Belichick, and you have to have the attitude of Rex Ryan. Do not reverse that at all, right? What we needed from Obama was him to say, "I am the man. Actually, I killed it for the last 8 years. You motherfuckers owe me."
Yeah.
Right. We needed Keegan Michael Key to actually be his voice and say, I am the reason why you guys are okay right now. Right? You motherfuckers owe me. High five all around. I'm the man. That's what we needed. Right? And we needed him to transfer that, right, to Hillary. But he didn't. Right? He took nope, I'm just gonna be humble, I'm gonna let my actions speak for themselves, and we got our ass kicked.
Yeah, I mean, and
there were other things.
Yeah.
I mean, there was a lot.
The fact that Hillary was jammed down the
right. I mean, there was a lot of factors. But again, a lot of that was the Democrats just not being ready. So right? They weren't ready. They didn't have a strategy in place, and it ended up killing them. And it's having a huge negative impact on the country right now. They need to right this ship. We need to right this ship. We need to right this conversation. So we need to right the ship. We need to right the ship on this conversation. And by righting the ship, I think we need to start talking about whiskey. I think it's a good time to transition over to the interview with Tom Lix, talking about whiskey, talking about Cleveland whiskey, talking about the Cleveland Whiskey Distillery here downtown Cleveland. What do you think?
I think that's awesome. I think so. Tom Lix is going to do his stuff and talk about the whiskey. There's one thing that I should have brought up because it did not get caught up or brought up in our original interview. Not only do they make awesome whiskey, not only do they infuse different kinds of wood, then they sell those wood chips for smokers. I think I need to buy a smoker. I need to buy a smoker, and we need to cook something. We need to have a whiskey Congress feast.
Whiskey Congress,
a smoker
whiskey and brisket,
with Cleveland whiskey wood chips in our smoker.
And invite all of our friends, none of them.
I'm not sharing. It's you, me, and
That's
So
it.
that's it. I'm good.
All right.
All right, man.
Thanks for listening. Appreciate it. Check us out, whiskeycongress.com. Find us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, Pinterest, all the social media, all at Whiskey Congress. Feel free to please comment or write us reviews. Actually, please do that. And also subscribe to the podcast, iTunes, Google Play, YouTube, all that stuff. Thank you for listening. Jim, it was a good time. Whoa.
Good time, man. Thanks a lot.
All right.
And of course, my phone's there. Bye. See ya.
Bye.
How you doing? This is Jim and Steve from Whiskey Congress. We are here with Tom Lix of Cleveland Whiskey. We just got a tour of the distillery, which was awesome, sir. Thank you very much.
Good. Glad you liked it.
Got to sample some really great bourbon. If you know our show and know us, we reside in Cleveland, and Mr. Lix is a transplant to Cleveland, but he's made it his home just like I guess I'm a transplant too, and so are you, I guess. Just not from as far.
Northeast Ohio.
Not from as far. But anyway, we just enjoyed some great bourbon style whiskeys, and looked at the process. His process is amazing. It makes great whiskey in roughly 6 months, whereas most whiskeys get aged 7 years. And this stuff is every bit as
Well,
good.
Tim, how about this? Why don't we let Tom give a little rundown of how the whiskey works, since
I'm geeking out a bit too much. All right, Tom, tell us what's your process.
So we do. We're not a craft distillery. We're not a micro distillery. We're really an innovation and technology company, and we use some technology to do things a little bit differently. Normally, when you make a spirit, it comes off a still. It goes into a barrel, and in that barrel is where you're getting 80% of the flavor and 100% of the color. But it's a slow process. You're sitting there every day waiting patiently. The temperatures are changing. The pressure changes inside the barrel. The liquid is going in and out of the pore structure of the wood, and that's where you're getting your flavor from. But again, it takes a long time, and I'm not that patient a person. And I think we can do some other interesting things as well. So we take very young spirits. They're all very young bourbons. They meet the legal definition of what a bourbon is, but they're young. You wouldn't want to drink them yet. They don't have the flavor profile that you'd want. We put them in pressure-capable stainless steel containers, and in that container we put the young spirit as well as a measured amount of wood, control for surface area, size, shape, weight, and moisture content. And then if you can imagine a sponge in a bucket of water, you squeeze that sponge, it's dry in your hand, but when you let it go, the water rushes into the pore structure of that sponge. That's what we do in those tanks. We apply relatively high pressure, drop it into a vacuum. High pressure into a vacuum, highly oxygenated environment, a couple of trade secrets involved in there in terms of our process, but we pull a tremendous amount of flavor out of that wood in a relatively short period of time. That's the first step of what we do. You want me to talk a little bit about? I can keep going, or you can shut, or you can tell me.
Maybe just a little bit more, just to, because people, if they're familiar with whiskey, what they know is it goes into the barrel, it sits in the barrel,
Yeah.
you taste it over the course of 10 years, and then it goes into a bottle.
Right.
Your process is not that at all, really.
Yeah.
So maybe going into the next step of what you guys do.
Well, and barrels, they're really an important part. They've been an important part of whiskey for many, many generations, and before that, other spirits. For thousands of years, we've been using these barrels. Really started more in Europe, using the European oaks. You made a barrel container. The barrel was designed as a storage container. It did everything from handling grain, spirits, wines. You'd use barrels to preserve fish. You put a layer of salt, a layer of fish, a layer of salt, a layer of fish, pack it up. You could preserve fish for a pretty long time. They were designed to be rolled down dirt roads and up on the planks on the ships. They weren't designed to give flavor to something. That was an accidental discovery that leaving your spirits in a barrel for a long period of time, it would taste better. And that's what we do. And there's nothing wrong with that. It makes perfectly good spirit. But we're sort of stuck using a certain type of oak, or American white oak, the European oaks. They expand just the right amount. They make a barrel that holds liquid. There might be some other great flavors from other woods like black cherry or apple or peach or pecan. Nobody's really been able to discover that because you can't make a barrel out of those woods. They would leak like a sieve.
That's the thing that I learned today that I was so most fascinated by. Was
Yeah.
I always knew they were done in oak, and I thought, must be because oak provides the flavor. Now they char the oak and do other things, but you let us taste a hickory whiskey that was just outstanding.
Yeah, so
And
we take very young spirits, and instead of then putting oak into our reactors, we put in hickory, for instance, and that wood gives it an entirely different flavor than a black cherry wood, or a honey locust, or a sugar maple, or an oak would do. So we get these finishes. Everything we're making right now is a bourbon. It's technically a bourbon. We start with a young bourbon, but then instead of using oak to finish it off by leaving it in a barrel for years, or even adding wood to or oak to our process, we use these other woods. Some of them are charred, some of them are toasted, some are just air dried, and we experiment all the time. I mean, I think this week we did persimmon, for instance. And it's really an interesting,
Where do you
flavor.
find persimmon? Where does persimmon wood? Where do you?
Well, actually, we have a new a collaborative agreement with the Holden Arboretum. And so we're getting a range of different woods that we're testing, and that was one of the first ones that we tested. So yeah.
Look for that.
It's a lot of fun. It's interesting, and we're doing things that, quite frankly, nobody else in the spirits world can do.
We talked a little bit before that the world is facing a whiskey shortage, and if the whiskey snobs want to say I'm not going to drink a young whiskey, that's fine. You don't don't like it. We'll be fine.
Well, what's interesting is we've talked about this. We've consumed your whiskey on our show multiple times, maybe a couple times a little too much, and I mean it's great. We both like it. I can admit that I can be whiskey snobbish at times, and initially, having a small understanding of the process is kind of like, it's kind of young, and then, but over the last, I would say 2 years, every time we've had a bottle on the show, I've been gifted bottles of Cleveland whiskey, and every time I drink it, I really feel it gets better and better each time.
Thanks for bringing that up, because I think that's one of the key advantages to using the technology. We are constantly experimenting. We are trying new things, not just new woods, but changing the parameters of how we do this. And unlike a traditional distillery, where if they want to make something better, and they all do, where you say, okay, I'm going to make something, I'm going to put it in a barrel, I'll try it at 2 years, not bad. Let's wait another 2 years, 4 years, not bad. 6 years, hey, this is looking promising. Maybe at 8 years they say, hey, this is pretty good. Now it's like, okay, now let's make some more. So it's 16 years to get there. With us, almost every day we are trying new things, and if it makes any one of our whiskeys taste better, we incorporate that into our process. So the very next batch of bottles that's coming out has that improvement built into it. I'm not trying to essentially blend it back to what it tasted like 50 years ago or 100 years ago, because I think we'll just keep trying to make it better. Sometimes I have people complain and they say, gee, I tried one of your whiskeys again, I hadn't tried it for a couple of years. It's really different. I was unhappy. But then when I talked to them and asked them, I said, well, did it taste better or worse? And they said, well, I must admit it actually tasted a little bit better. Well, that's a good thing.
Right.
Let's pursue that. Let's make them taste better.
So much of it, we get brainwashed into thinking, certain things, you get brainwashed into thinking that certain things, because that's the way they were, or that's how they are, that's how they should be. Right. So, we kind of think, oh, well, this whiskey that is, 21 years old is really good because I've been told it's really good.
Yes.
And yet what you do is say, listen, maybe your 21-year-old whiskey is pretty good, but what I know is I tasted my whiskey after 6 months, tried it, realized I can do X, Y, and Z, made it better. So now, 3 months after that, you now have a better whiskey, or however the process. I can appreciate that, in just because I've tasted, I've seen it with your products, especially with the underground whiskey that we were talking about before. I've probably had 3 different underground whiskeys, and they all kind of stand out on their own, and none of them was just like, oh, that one's bad, or you were going backwards. It was definitely all going forward. So, we can definitely appreciate it from that end.
And I've got nothing wrong with the traditional process. I'm not trying to reject the tradition. I'm saying, look, we've got this. We've got a great base of information and knowledge, and we know how to make it this good. Now let's see if we can make a few things that are different, that might be better, but perhaps off in different directions. I'm not saying that when we take a bourbon and we finish with black cherry wood, it isn't necessarily better than an older bourbon. It's just different.
Right.
And
those things
it's a different experience.
They can run on parallel tracks.
Absolutely.
You can have your classic and traditional way of doing things,
Yeah.
but there's nothing wrong with innovation, which is what you bring here to the city of Cleveland, which I want to talk about briefly. The name of your company is Cleveland Whiskey.
Yeah,
We're
yeah.
in the city of Cleveland. You know, you're right in downtown, heart of Cleveland, next to Cleveland State. Could you talk about a little bit just about your company's kind of place in this in the city we call home now?
Well, it's interesting you bring that up because once we named the company Cleveland Whiskey, that was a commitment that said we will be here in Cleveland. You know, you can probably tell from my very thick Boston accent that I'm from Boston. You know, I moved here about 11 years ago. My mom was born and raised here in Cleveland. Her parents were immigrants, came over from Europe. She was born and raised here. She met my father in going to Fenn College, now Cleveland State. He was from New Jersey, so they got married right after college, moved to the East Coast. I've lived on the East Coast, West Coast, in Colorado, all over the place, but had never lived here in Cleveland. I visited my grandparents a few times, but you know, as a young kid, that was it. My mom moved back though 11 or 12 years ago, and she got sick. And my wife and I I had just sold a company that I had in Boston. We were about to move to the West Coast, and we said, look, let's come out here. We'll take care of mom. You know, we'll keep her out of a nursing home, and hopefully, as she gets better, she'll move with us. And you know, unfortunately, she didn't get better. But I had a couple of really great years with her. It was the best thing that we could have done. But in the meantime, I fell in love with Cleveland. It is a phenomenal city, sometimes underappreciated, but I love this city. It's a little bit like Boston was, I don't know, 40 or 50 years ago. I mean, both cities, Cleveland and Boston, were you know, world-class industrial cities that fell on hard times. Things changed, technologies changed, you know, demand for products changed. They both fell on hard times, and Boston sort of, you know, it worked itself back up a little bit sooner than Cleveland, but Cleveland is doing that now. It's impressive. It's something to be proud of. I mean, both cities had empty industrial buildings, but buildings that were made to last for hundreds of years. I live in a little brick home in Parma. It's got a brass plaque on it that says who the builders were, who the masons were. I mean, I'm just so blown away by that. It's a little working class home that people took enough pride in to say, hey, we built this home. We've got a great educated workforce, and by that I mean both blue collar and white collar, and you need them both to really make a vibrant city and a working city. We've got fresh water, that's going to be increasingly important. Both Boston and Cleveland had issues with water, but we took care of them. I mean, we should stop talking about the thing that people talk about. There's a company out there that has a beer around here that talks about a burning, yeah, never mind.
Okay,
I think nobody else talks about that except the people here in Cleveland. We're over that, we're done with that. We've got good
Old
quality
Cleveland
fresh
versus new
water. There's just some really great things and some good analogies about what's going on in Cleveland versus what happened in Boston. And we're on the same trajectory in terms of people moving back into the city and doing things downtown. And you know, I remember when I first got here 10 or 11 years ago, I would drive downtown and there was nobody here.
Right.
I was struck by that coming from Boston.
Right.
Now I move down, now I come down over the weekend and there are things that are happening here. It's still not Boston,
Right.
but it's making progress. And when I put the name Cleveland Whiskey on the company, that was it. You can't take Cleveland Whiskey and move it back to Boston. We are here to stay.
That's awesome, and the companies you partnered with and stuff, there's so much growing from a technology standpoint in this area.
Yeah.
And just seeing you as one of the, you know, cornerstones, just
I
very
just
exciting for me.
love this city. I think it's a great city.
I
Yeah,
mean,
it's got a
that's-
great food scene.
Right,
Yeah.
I mean,
Oh, yeah.
Cleveland Clinic is one of the biggest employers here in the city of Cleveland and Cuyahoga County. And Cleveland Clinic is known for its innovation. And I think that this fits so much in line kind of with that. There's other technology companies, and even where we're at right now with the
with
Magnet
Magnet,
program. Just there's a lot going on here that I think that a lot of people out there, because we have a diverse listener and viewership, people that have never been to Cleveland who haven't seen it, or maybe they've only been to the airport. And I think that
Or people who have lived in Cleveland their entire life but haven't come downtown lately.
right, they just
It's-
they
yeah.
move out to the suburbs,
Yeah,
and then
that's
that
right.
kind of becomes their
Yeah.
circle.
Yeah.
But I think that just what you're doing, not only in terms of providing a great local whiskey, but just the innovation and ingenuity that I can't believe that you're going to be the only person doing this for that much longer, right? I mean, with the demand.
That's why he's got some stuff.
Right. I mean,
That's why I wasn't answering your questions.
Right, which
now.
is
Yeah.
well, but I think it's remarkable. I can really appreciate you guys being here. It's great to go to a liquor store and just say, hey, Cleveland whiskey, and it's not just a gimmick. It's not someone else's whiskey with a sticker slapped over the bottle. To be able to come here and see what you guys do.
Well,
it's great.
and the good news is we're not just making whiskey here for Cleveland. We're making Cleveland whiskey for the world. So, we're still relatively young. We shipped our first bottle in March of 2013, but we now have distribution in 16 states, from New York and New Hampshire and Massachusetts down to Florida, over into Tennessee, Maryland, Virginia, Illinois, Michigan. I know I'm missing a number of them, but we're also selling the Cleveland whiskey, that Cleveland bottle, the bottle with the big Cleveland on it. That's sold in Germany, France, Belgium, Switzerland, Japan, and we even started selling a little bit last year in mainland China.
Fantastic.
Yeah, and it's Cleveland.
And I'm big into innovation and technology, but when innovation and technology can bring me whiskey, it's even that much better.
I know. I agree.
It's nothing better.
I agree.
You build a better electric fence for the dog. That's great. This gets whiskey right in front of me, so that's the best part about it.
No, I totally agree.
Well, Tom, listen, we thank you. We don't want to take up too much of your time. We need you to go down and
You want me to make more whiskey?
So, thank you for the tour. Thanks for sitting down with us, and just keep doing what you're doing.
Gentlemen, it was my pleasure. Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
so much.
Thanks a lot.
All right. Well, thank you. Really, thank you so much. We'll get this up on YouTube this weekend is the plan, and we'll send.